Today, I wanted to talk about mental and emotional resilience, right? At the end of the day, I think the idea of doing what we're doing here by routinely getting together and just baking these practices into the way we live our life is that we're building a set of skills that give us mental and emotional resilience, right? So when someone does something that we don't like or something doesn't go the way that we don't want it to, or fill in the blank, it doesn't completely throw us. So I want to just define resilience, or give a concept here of how to think about mental and emotional resilience. And the first one is bounce. So the idea is that, imagine you take a bowling ball and you throw it out the first floor window here and watch it hit the concrete. It's not going to bounce. It just kind of shatters. Versus taking a basketball and lobbing it out the window, and it's probably going to bounce back up to maybe nearly as high as the height of where I threw it. And so, from a mental and emotional resilience standpoint, that's a concept that's really helped me just remember, Ollie, be the basketball. You want to bounce. So, meaning, when something happens, and it's going to happen, like things are going to knock us down and be frustrating and difficult. And when that happens, I want to cultivate my capacity to bounce back. The faster I can bounce back, the faster I can, in an ideal world, even bounce higher than from where I started. And something we can do there is, what's the learning, or how do I potentially avoid this situation next time? So we can put something additive and make use of this seemingly negative situation and bounce back up. So don't be the bowling ball. And then the second concept in bounce is grit. So when I think of grit, I think of a mason's hands or a fisherman's hands. Someone who who has calloused, thick skin on their hands because they're using their hands a lot. Those people don't get paper cuts, right? They don't get. It doesn't bother them when they're trying to take the staple out of some stapled paper. They don't sit there and say, "Ouch," that hurt, because they've got some grit built up. And that's also what we're trying to do here, is build up our sense of grit, so that when things happen and they knock us around a bit, we're not so touchy or twitchy that um, that it really takes us down. And again, the cool thing is, these are things that we can practice intentionally. And so I thought today what I'd do is do a guided meditation, um, and focus on this mental and emotional resilience piece. And so for you, I'd like for you to think of a situation that was stressful for you, something that constituted some kind of a knockdown, or something that hurt. Ideally, on a 10-point scale, and 10 being the most, awful, terrible thing that you've experienced. Don't pick that one for this exercise. Maybe pick a 5, and a 1 would be, gee, that really didn't matter at all. You pick something that had a little bit of sting to it. Maybe you felt yourself ruminating or struggling with it for, a few days, or maybe even a couple of weeks. And yeah, and let's see what happens if we try to layer in these two concepts of bounce and grit. So go ahead, close your eyes, and let's start as we always do. Feet flat on the ground, with an upright and alert posture, noticing our contact with the ground. Let's just presence ourselves for a second here. You've already had a full morning behind you, and you're probably probably well engaged in whatever work or other things in life. See if, just for the next few minutes, you just bring your full attention to the here and now, and the simplicity of just sitting in your chair with your feet flat on the ground. All the other stuff will still be there in 7 minutes from now. But right now, we're just sitting, we're breathing. Maybe do a really cursory body scan, sort of passing your attention from the top of your head, through your eyes, your jaw, down to your shoulders and chest and belly, all the way through your legs down to your feet. And just notice, what does my body feel like right now? Don't try to change it, just observing, playing the neutral observer. And then go ahead and bring to mind this memory of this event, this experience that felt stressful. And notice in your memory, let's start with just the facts. What happened? Where were you? Who were you with, if anyone? And what happened? And see if you can just observe the facts sort of beyond the subjective story of who should have done what or how things happened. Literally just notice sort of the timeline of I was here and this thing happened. And then I found myself feeling a certain way, thinking certain thoughts. What did your body feel like? Where in your body did you feel the stress of the situation? Especially noticing in your memory what your belly felt like in your chest, your hands, or your jaw. Usually where stress seems to settle in. And again, just taking note of what it felt like to be in this situation. Activating some self-awareness about the physiological imprint that the situation was leaving in your body. In a real sense, emotions are, I just think of emotions as energy in motion. And we experience emotions as sensations in the body. Just notice what sensations you're experiencing because of this situation. And now notice the story or the narrative that's accompanying this situation. What are you telling yourself about either just the situation or if there were other people involved? What are you telling yourself about yourself in the situation? And especially beware of or become aware of any languaging that feels like what I call shoulding. Oh, yeah, I should have done this, or they should have done this, or shouldn't have. They always, I never. That's the narrative. That's the story that's sitting on top of these the facts of this situation. And now ask yourself, how much bounce was there in your response to this experience? How agile, how flexible were you? How able were you to have this experience, notice all of these thoughts and feelings and narratives that were popping up? Were you the bowling ball or the basketball? How long did that negativity linger? And was it necessary for it to linger that long? And the same with grit, just remembering the experience that this and how activating the situation was. How thin skinned were you? Or was there a sense of grit? How could you have been grittier? If the situation were to occur again, if you had a do over, you could go back in time and have the same experience again, knowing what you know now about bounce and grit. Just gonna gently lean into this notion of opening up that question within you and saying, how could I relive this experience with a little more bounce and a little more grit? And how might that affect the outcome? How might that affect how long this situation has been affecting me? Maybe something to take into the weekend with you. Go ahead, take a deep breath in and exhale all the way. And open your eyes, going back to looking at everyone in the group. And as always, just noticing when you open your eyes, suddenly there's a whole bunch more inputs coming in, and see if in the background you can maintain this sense of curiosity, or just this, I like to think of it as just holding this open question about how can I cultivate more balance and grit in my life? What are things that I can do to cultivate more mental and emotional resilience? And I'll leave you with, this is actually what prompted this session for me. I was thinking about some of my own stressors and how I've been dealing with them. And Nelson Mandela is one of my heroes, and born in some facts about him, born in 1918. He was 43 years old when he was sentenced to life imprisonment, and spent 27 years in hard labor, oftentimes solitary confinement. And only because the South African government was afraid that there was basically going to be bloodshed did they release him at the age of 70. So this guy spent basically the majority of his adult life in prison. When he came out and was elected president, the first thing that he did was set up the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And I love this idea of, talk about resilience, right? Someone who had every reason as a human being to be angry and maybe vengeful, and instead he steered the country through a really delicate period of time. And this is supposedly his one of his favorite poems that he found a lot of solace in. And I'll just read it. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I've not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. So to me, this sort of represents the kind of the ultimate resilient warrior. So I hope there's some inspiration in there. We're a little over time. Have a great weekend, and yeah, I hope this is a useful, both inspiring and also practical for everyone. So see you on Monday.